Hello and welcome to another episode of From the Beginning here on Heavenward Thinking. Today we're continuing on in the book of Leviticus. We're looking at Leviticus chapter 23, the second half, starting in verse 23 and going all the way through the end this week. So I'll read it. We'll get right into this week's discussion. The Lord said to Moses, "Say to the Israelites, on the first day of the seventh month you are to have a day of Sabbath rest, a sacred assembly, commemorated with trumpet blasts. Do no regular work, but present a food offering to the Lord." The Lord said to Moses, "The 10th day of this seventh month is the Day of Atonement. Hold a sacred assembly and deny yourselves and present a food offering to the Lord. Do not do any work on that day, because it is the Day of Atonement, when atonement is made for you before the Lord your God. Those who do not deny themselves on that day must be cut off from their people. I will destroy from among their people anyone who does any work on that day. You shall do no work at all. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come wherever you live. It is a day of Sabbath rest for you, and you must deny yourselves. From the evening of the 9th day of the month until the following evening, you are to observe your Sabbath." The Lord said to Moses, "Say to the Israelites, on the 15th day of the seventh month, the Lord's festival of tabernacles begins, and it lasts for 7 days. The first day is a sacred assembly. Do no regular work. For 7 days, present food offerings to the Lord. On the 8th day, hold a sacred assembly and present a food offering to the Lord. It is the closing special assembly. Do no regular work. These are the Lord's appointed festivals, which you are to proclaim as sacred assemblies for bringing food offerings to the Lord, the burnt offerings and grain offerings, sacrifices and drink offerings required for each day. These offerings are in addition to those for the Lord's Sabbaths, and in addition to your gifts and whatever you have vowed, and all the freewill offerings you give to the Lord. So, beginning with the 15th day of the seventh month, after you have gathered the crops of the land, celebrate the festival to the Lord for 7 days. The first day is a day of Sabbath rest, and the 8th day also is a day of Sabbath rest. On the first day, you are to take branches from luxuriant trees, from palms, willows, and other leafy trees, and rejoice before the Lord your God for 7 days. Celebrate this as a festival to the Lord for 7 days each year. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. Celebrate it in the 7th month. Live in temporary shelters for 7 days. All native-born Israelites are to live in such shelters, so your descendants will know that I had the Israelites live in temporary shelters when I brought them out of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." So Moses announced to the Israelites the appointed festivals of the Lord. So as we look at this and we start in the first couple sections here, we pick up right where we left off last week, talking about the different festivals that God is instructing Moses to then instruct the Israelites to carry out and to remember and to do, not just now, but as a lasting ordinance for generation after generation. And we talked about, and we'll talk about again today, the importance of remembering what God has done and why these festivals are even being celebrated to begin with. God's holiness and his calling for his people to be holy, to be different, to live as an example to the nations around them. We see that especially here in this chapter, talking in this section, the Day of Atonement, the Festival of Trumpets, the Festival of Tabernacles, these festivals pointing to, especially emphasizing that atonement factor, the factor that God is going to atone, he's going to forgive their sin. But right now, when this was written, right now in Leviticus, the Israelites, this atonement isn't going to be a once-for-all thing like what Jesus did on the cross. This is going to be a Day of Atonement that has to be done year after year after year. The priest has to offer a sacrifice, and this is a super, super holy day, remembering that God is forgiving, he's atoning for the Israelites' sin, but it's not going to be a permanent atonement like we have through Jesus and his blood shed on the cross for you and for me. That was once for all. It's not something that has to be done constantly. Jesus doesn't have to be sacrificed day after day after day. It was a one-time thing, unlike these temporary animal sacrifices. They didn't forever remove sin. It was only a temporary thing, whereas Jesus completely defeated sin and death on the cross when he rose from the dead. And so this, again, is a good foreshadowing of what Jesus is ultimately going to do, but it should also be a reminder for us, and it was a reminder for them, that it was a temporary thing and that they had a sin problem. And a lot of these festivals pointing to the fact that they have a sin problem, that they needed God's deliverance. We look at the end of the chapter, looking at the Festival of Tabernacles. God specifically tells the Israelites that they're supposed to live in these temporary shelters for 7 days, and they're supposed to do this for all of time, throughout all the generations, so that they will remember that the Lord brought them out of Egypt and had them live in temporary shelters. Again, it's like a memorial, just like God tells them sometimes to build a memorial in certain cases throughout the Old Testament. Here, these festivals are also like a memorial, reminding the Israelites that God rescued them. He delivered them out of the land of slavery in Egypt. He's bringing them to a promised land. He's atoning for their sin. He is forgiving them. He's blessing them with first fruits, with harvest, all these different celebrations and festivals that you and I have been looking at the past couple weeks. It's important that we look at them because God had this written down for us for a reason, not just to, back in the Old Testament time, instruct the Israelites, but also to show us something today. You and I can find things, and we've been doing it throughout Leviticus, finding really important truths, and one of them is that importance of atonement. We need to understand that without Jesus' blood shed on the cross, there couldn't be this permanent atonement. Instead, we'd be living under the Old Testament times of a animal sacrifice atoning for sin each year, and then having to do it year after year after year, having to bring these other sacrifices time after time after time, having to do all these different festivals and celebrations instead of living under that freedom that comes through Jesus Christ, through his bloodshed, the forgiveness that we have through Jesus. We don't have to have these priests go before us and intercede for us. Instead, we have Jesus himself interceding for us before the Father. It's an amazing, amazing truth, and we can appreciate that better when we look at what things would be like without Jesus. What would have happened if we didn't have Jesus permanently atoning for our sin? And so it's important that we look at chapters like this, and that we see that these sacred assemblies, these weren't just things that God was weighing down the Israelites with, hey, you can't work for this day, you can't work for that day, and like trying to decrease their productivity. No, instead he's trying to get them to understand that they need to periodically, from time to time, whether it be the Sabbath day, whether it be these sacred assemblies, these festivals, all these different things, they need to take time out to stop from their crazy, busy schedules, to stop, take a moment to remember the Lord, remember what he's done, remember what he's done in this season, and then remember what he's done later on in that season, how he did this for them, how he then did that for them. And I think we can learn something from what God is trying to teach the Israelites here in our own lives, because we're really, really bad in our modern go culture, our crazy, busy, fast-paced world that we live in today. Even as Christians, we're really bad at taking a moment and just stopping and thanking God for what he's done, remembering what he's done, and celebrating what God has done and what he does in our lives. We're so busy trying to move on to the next thing, get this task done, do this, move to this pleasure, do this work thing, that we don't take time to stop and remember what God has done for us and to reflect on who God is and who he's called us to be. And so I think it's important that if we take nothing else from this chapter of these different festivals, these different breaks and pauses that God is having the Israelites commemorate here and celebrate, we should learn that we need to take moments in our own lives to reflect on what God's done, to see what he's doing in our current situations, in our current life situations that we're going through, and then to honor and glorify him through our lives. And it's important that we take that time, we pause, we reflect, because it then helps us move forward and be more productive in our lives when we take that moment, rest, recharge, focus on God. And then we can glorify him better in the day-to-day busyness and craziness of our world. And so that's my encouragement for you, that you would take time in your own lives, that you would take time to remember what God has done, reflect on what he's doing in your life, and live out what he is calling you to live out as you honor him and live intentionally for him each day. That's my challenge for you this week, and I hope you'll join us next time for another episode of From the Beginning here on Heavenward Thinking.